Imagine a time when Europe was stuck in the Dark Ages. People were battling diseases, fighting wars, and struggling to survive. But on the other side of the world, China was already inventing things that would change the world forever. While Europe was still using rudimentary tools and trying to figure out how to tell time, China was creating advanced technology that was centuries ahead. Today we're going to look at 5 amazing inventions from medieval China that were so advanced Europe didn't catch up until hundreds of years later. These inventions weren't just cool, they shaped the future of the world. You won't believe how far ahead China was. So let's start by talking about how the Chinese invented the first mechanical clock, something Europe didn't even have for a long time. When we think about clocks today, we probably don't give them much thought. They're everywhere. But back in the Middle Ages, most people in Europe had no idea what a real clock was. They used the sun, hourglasses, or bells to keep track of time. But in China, things were different. In the 11th century, a Chinese inventor named Su Song created the first mechanical clock. This wasn't just any clock, it was a giant machine powered by water. A water wheel turned the gears to keep time, and this clock did more than just tell the time. It also showed the positions of the stars and planets. That's right, this clock was an astronomical clock that could track the night sky, making it much more advanced than anything in Europe at the time. It wasn't just for rich people either. The Chinese used clocks to help everyone keep track of time. They were placed in public towers so people could see the time whenever they needed. Meanwhile, Europe was still using basic timekeeping methods, and mechanical clocks didn't appear there for several more centuries. China had already mastered time, while the West was still in the dark. Today, we use compasses all the time to help us find our way, whether we're hiking, driving, or even sailing. But China was using compasses long before Europe. The Chinese invented the magnetic compass during the Han Dynasty, around the 2nd century BC. At first, they used it for feng shui and divination, which is basically the belief that it could guide decisions in life. But the real breakthrough came later when the Chinese started using the compass for navigation. By the Song Dynasty, they were using it to navigate ships on the open sea. Now, here's the kicker. Europe didn't get the compass for maritime travel until the 12th century, more than 1,000 years later. That means Chinese sailors were already exploring the oceans while Europe was still trying to figure out how to use the stars to guide them. The compass changed the world of travel and exploration, and the Chinese were the ones who started it all. Gunpowder is one of the most important inventions in history, but it didn't come from Europe, it came from China. The Chinese first created gunpowder in the 9th century by mixing saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal, ingredients we still use today in fireworks and explosives. At first, Chinese alchemists were just trying to make an elixir for immortality, but they ended up making something far more dangerous: explosives. They quickly realized that gunpowder could be used for weapons. By the 10th century, China was already using rockets, flamethrowers, and fire lances, early forms of gunpowder weapons. These were used in battle and gave the Chinese an advantage in warfare. But here's the shocking part. Europe didn't start using gunpowder for war until the 13th century, about 400 years later. That means China was already blowing things up with rockets and flamethrowers, while Europe was still using swords and bows. Gunpowder changed the way wars were fought, and China was the one who first used it to reshape the battlefield. Today, we take printing for granted, but China was the first to come up with a way to print books and documents in mass numbers. The Chinese invented woodblock printing around the Tang Dynasty, around the 7th century. This process involved carving entire pages of text into wooden blocks, then using ink to print it onto paper. It was a game changer for spreading knowledge, from religious texts to official documents. Imagine, while Europe was still copying books by hand, the Chinese were already printing hundreds of copies of books, making it easier for people to learn and share information. But here's something even more surprising. Europe didn't get the printing press until the 15th century, when Johannes Gutenberg invented it. That means China was 400 years ahead of Europe in spreading knowledge through mass printing. Woodblock printing wasn't just an invention for China, it changed the world, and China was the one that got the ball rolling. The key to any successful society is food, and China knew that. One of the inventions that helped China feed millions was the iron plow. The iron plough was invented during the Han Dynasty and was a huge improvement over the wooden ploughs used in Europe at the time. The iron blade was much stronger and it could cut through tough soil more easily, making it perfect for farming in China's mountainous and fertile regions. Thanks to the iron plough, Chinese farmers could plough larger fields faster, which led to more crops and a stronger economy. But here's the catch: Europe didn't get the iron plough until the Middle Ages, hundreds of years later. European farmers were still using wooden ploughs that couldn't cut through the soil as well. So while China was improving agriculture and feeding millions, Europe was stuck with older farming tools that slowed down their growth. The iron plough helped China become a superpower in agriculture long before Europe caught up. These 5 incredible inventions from medieval China weren't just ahead of their time, they were the foundation of many modern technologies we take for granted today. China's innovative spirit was centuries ahead of Europe in fields like timekeeping, warfare, agriculture, and communication. So the next time you hear someone talk about the Dark Ages in Europe, remember that the East was already setting the stage for a future that Europe wouldn't catch up to for hundreds of years. If this video blew your mind, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Which invention from medieval China did you find the most surprising?